My boyfriend gaslit me into thinking I had dementia to hide his double life. So I used face scanning AI to hand him a felony. I was staring down at the $400 tracking receipt on my screen while the local precinct's hold music drilled into my ears, realizing the man I shared my bed with was running a black market liquidation of my life. I had two choices: confront him with a face completely slick with pathetic tears, or construct an invisible digital cage that would lock him inside a felony. To understand the exact magnitude of the mistake my boyfriend Liam made, you have to understand how my brain operates. I am a senior mobile architect. I build enterprise-grade software ecosystems for a living. I don't just look at the world. I index it. I parse it. I categorize it. My walk-in closet is not a graveyard of impulse buys and messy hangers. It is a highly curated, temperature-controlled database. I know the exact deployment date of every designer shoe. I have the specific 14-digit serial numbers of my luxury bags memorized like my own social security number. I treat my wardrobe the same way I treat my server architecture, with absolute, uncompromising security. Or at least, I thought I did. The data leak started 3 months ago. It was a Tuesday morning, rain lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows of our apartment. I reached for my Prada Galleria bag, caramel Saffiano leather, pristine gold-plated hardware, a piece I bought to celebrate my promotion to senior architect. My hand hit empty air. The designated shelf space was completely bare. I felt a slight flutter in my chest, a tiny ping of a system error, but I brushed it off. I must have left it in the living room. But it wasn't there. 2 weeks later, the limited edition Versace silk slip disappeared. It was a vintage 1990s archival piece, a dress so delicate and specific that it had its own specialized garment bag in the back left corner of the rack. Gone. Then came the catastrophic failure. The vintage Cartier Love bracelet, 18-karat yellow gold, 1998 edition. I had taken it off to deep clean my espresso machine and left it in a small porcelain dish on the kitchen island. When I came back from my shower, the dish was empty. I felt the heat rising in my neck, my vision going blurry with a blinding, suffocating rage. I tore the apartment apart. I ripped the cushions off the custom Italian leather sofa. I crawled on my hands and knees across the hardwood floors, my fingernails scraping against the baseboards, hyperventilating as the impossible reality set in. Items don't just vanish into the ether. Matter cannot be destroyed. When Liam walked through the door that evening, casually tossing his keys onto the entry console, the smell of expensive scotch and his signature Tom Ford cologne billowed into the room. I was sitting on the floor of the closet, my knees pulled to my chest, breathing in ragged, shallow gasps. "Liam, my Cartier is gone," I whispered, my vocal cords tight and strained. He didn't even flinch. He walked over, loosening his silk tie, and looked down at me with a perfectly engineered mask of condescending pity. He sighed, running a heavy hand through his dark hair. "Babe, you're overworked," he said, his voice dripping with synthetic syrup. "You probably left the Prada at that rooftop bar last month. And you definitely dropped that bracelet at the dry cleaners. You're getting scatterbrained. You've been staring at code for too many hours." "I don't just drop things," I screamed, the sheer force of my voice echoing off the hardwood. "I logged that bag into my closet. I know exactly where I put that bracelet. Someone was in our apartment." Liam's jaw tightened. He walked into the bathroom and came back a moment later. He crouched down to my eye level, the smell of peppermint mouthwash masking the scotch, and slid a plastic bottle across the pristine carpet toward my knees. It hit my leg with a hollow, insulting clatter. "I bought these for you yesterday," he whispered, his eyes locked onto mine with a terrifying, chilling calm. "Memory supplements. Ginkgo biloba. I didn't want to bring it up because I knew you'd get defensive. But you're losing your grip, Jen. You're forgetting conversations. You're misplacing thousands of dollars worth of stuff. You need to take a step back and look at your own mental health before you start accusing the world of stealing from you." I stared at the bottle. I felt the blood drain entirely from my face, a cold, sickening numbness spreading from my collarbones down to my fingertips. He wasn't just dismissing me. He was actively rewriting my reality. He was planting a virus in my foundational code, trying to convince me that my own hardware was failing. For 3 agonizing weeks, I swallowed those pills. I cried in the shower. I genuinely believed the stress of my job was causing early-onset cognitive decline. I started writing down everything I did in a leather-bound notebook, terrified of my own deteriorating mind. I was drowning in my own manufactured insanity. Until the algorithm threw me a lifeline. I was sitting at my desk in the office, dual monitors casting a harsh, sterile blue glow across my face. I was running QA testing on a new, highly aggressive image recognition API our firm had developed for a massive e-commerce client. The system was designed to map granular textures, lighting variations, and microscopic microscopic material details to match user-uploaded photos with global retail inventory. I needed a high-resolution control image to test how the neural network handled textured leather. I pulled out my phone, scrolled back to a photo I had taken of my missing Prada Galleria bag 6 months prior, and dropped the JPEG into the upload field. I hit execute. The terminal window cascaded with lines of green data. The loading bar stuttered, hit 99%, and flashed a result. Confidence score 0.998. Match found 1. The similar items results didn't populate with generic department store links or brand new Prada listings. It served a singular 1:1 direct match. It was a listing on a secondary market app called Depop. The thumbnail image loaded on my right monitor. My stomach physically dropped, a sickening plunge that left the bitter, metallic taste of copper in the back of my throat. There it was, caramel Saffiano leather, gold-plated hardware, and a hyper-specific, microscopic scuff mark on the bottom left brass foot that I had caused by scraping it against a taxi door in Manhattan 2 years ago. Listed price, $2,800. Condition, gently loved. My fingers hovered over the mechanical keyboard, violently trembling. I clicked the seller's profile, Kelly's _closet _New York. The shop bio read, sustainable fashion enthusiast. 22, just a girl selling her gently loved designer pieces. Sparkling heart, no lowballs. The page was a sprawling, pastel-tinted grid of high-end luxury goods. Dozens of items. I scrolled furiously, my breath hitching in my throat as my eyes darted across the thumbnails. But wait, that's when the real bombshell dropped. The rabbit hole didn't just go deep. It went straight through the floorboards of my own home, shattering everything I thought I knew about my life. I clicked on a listing for a vintage, 1990s archival Versace silk slip. My slip. The seller didn't just lay this one flat on a bed. She had modeled it. I opened the high-resolution image, the screen illuminating the face of a stunningly young, blonde girl with heavy eyelash extensions and an overly lined pout. She was popping her hip, holding a phone over her face in a mirror selfie. But I wasn't looking at the girl. I was looking at the background. Behind her, slightly out of focus but undeniably clear to the woman who paid the mortgage on it, was a massive Calicut marble kitchen island. Sitting proudly on the counter was a matte black, dual-boiler La Marzocco espresso machine. My espresso machine. My kitchen. This girl wasn't just stealing my clothes. She was parading around inside my sanctuary. She was breathing my air. My heart didn't just break, it completely calcified. I felt a tectonic shift in my chest. The tears that had been threatening to spill instantly dried up, replaced by a cold, absolute, predatory focus. I wasn't a crazy woman losing her memory. I was the victim of a meticulously coordinated heist orchestrated by the man sleeping in my bed. I leaned closer to the monitor, the pixels practically burning my retinas. I needed hard, irrefutable data. I opened another modeled shot. This time, Kylie was wearing a Burberry trench coat. Her left arm was raised, holding the phone, her wrist exposed to the harsh ring light reflection. I downloaded the image. I opened it in Photoshop. I cropped directly onto her left wrist. I applied a sharpening filter, adjusted the contrast, and bumped the exposure until the shadows vanished. Wrapped around the wrist of this 22-year-old thief was a heavy, silver chronograph watch. But not just any watch. I zoomed in until the individual pixels began to warp, focusing entirely on the metal clasp. There it was. The custom, microscopic laser engraving I had ordered from a boutique jeweler in Geneva. J+L, version 1.0. It was the $2,000 anniversary gift I had given Liam exactly 1 year ago. The watch he claimed he only wore to important board meetings. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't immediately pick up my phone and obliterate Liam's entire existence with a single text message. If you find a rat in your server room, you don't just smash it with a hammer. You trace the gnawed wires, you locate the nest, and you seal the exits before you turn on the gas. I closed all the tabs. I wiped my browser history. I went home that evening and cooked Liam a beautiful, medium-rare ribeye steak. I poured him a glass of his favorite Cabernet. I smiled as he complained about the incompetence of his junior developers. I even let him kiss my forehead before bed, his lips pressing against my skin like a branding iron of deceit. "Sleep well, scatterbrain," he whispered, turning off the bedside lamp. I laid there in the pitch black, my eyes wide open, listening to the rhythmic, oblivious cadence of his breathing. The next morning, the moment Liam's Audi pulled out of the parking garage, the operation began. I booted up my encrypted laptop. I routed my connection through a VPN based in Chicago to mask my IP address. I navigated to Depop and created a burner account. Username, admin_asset_recovery. I didn't message Kylie. I didn't ask questions. I loaded a prepaid Visa card and directly purchased my own stolen Versace silk slip bag for $400. I selected the priority tracked shipping option, paying an absurd premium for 2-day delivery. The notification pinged in my inbox. Your item has shipped. Kylie even sent a little automated message with 3 sparkle emojis. For 48 hours, I existed in a state of suspended animation. I went to work. I drank my coffee. I nodded during stand-up meetings. But beneath my skin, 1,000 volts of pure adrenaline were constantly humming. When the cardboard package finally arrived, dumped unceremoniously on my welcome mat by the mail carrier, my hands were entirely steady. I carried it to the kitchen island, the very same island Kylie had posed against. I sliced the packing tape with a utility knife. I pulled back the tissue paper. The scent hit me first, a cheap, overpowering cloud of vanilla body mist that completely violated the delicate silk of my vintage dress. My stomach churned, a visceral disgust rolling through my intestines. But the dress was irrelevant. The dress was just the Trojan horse. I flipped the cardboard box over. I stared at the thermal printed shipping label. I carefully slipped the edge of my utility knife under the top corner of the sticker and slowly, meticulously, peeled it back. Kylie had printed her Depop label and slapped it directly over a previous shipping label. The adhesive gave way with a satisfying, tearing sound, revealing the original printed address underneath. It wasn't a P.O. box. It wasn't a suburban house in New Jersey. It was an apartment in a hyper-luxury, high-security building directly downtown in the financial district. Unit 42B. I recognized the address instantly. It was the building Liam claimed his tech startup used as its satellite office. The place he went for his late-night coding sessions. The place he told me was strictly off-limits to spouses because of heavy non-disclosure agreements with government clients. He wasn't coding. He was subsidizing a secondary luxury apartment for his 22-year-old mistress, using the liquidated assets of my own wardrobe to fund their sick, twisted domestic fantasy. The trap was fully set. It was time to execute the audit. I walked into my closet. I opened a hidden, fireproof floor safe and extracted a thick manila folder. Inside were the original certificates of authenticity, the macro photographs of the hardware, and the laser-printed documents detailing the exact, unique serial numbers for the Cartier bracelet, the Prada bag, and 5 other items I had noticed missing during my final inventory check. I didn't call Liam. I called the local police precinct. I didn't sound frantic. I sounded like a corporate lawyer delivering a subpoena. I provided the exact dollar amount of the stolen property, well over the threshold for felony grand larceny. I provided the serial numbers. I provided the undeniable digital trail linking the stolen property directly to Unit 42B. 45 minutes later, I pulled my car into the loading zone of the downtown luxury high-rise. 2 squad cars were already idling by the curb, the heavy rain slicking the pavement beneath their flashing blue and red lights. 2 uniformed officers and a plainclothes detective approached my window. "Ms. Davis," the detective asked, his eyes scanning my completely emotionless face. "I have the physical tracking receipt linking the seller to the stolen goods," I said, handing over a pristine, categorized binder. "The items inside that apartment legally belong to me. The serial numbers will match the laser engravings on the jewelry. I want my property retrieved, and I want the occupants charged." We rode the elevator up to the 42nd floor in total, suffocating silence. The doors parted with a soft, melodic chime. We walked down the hallway, the thick plush carpet absorbing the heavy thud of the officer's boots. Unit 42B. The detective didn't press the doorbell. He knocked, a heavy, authoritative, rhythmic pounding that seemed to shake the mahogany doorframe. We waited 10 seconds. Then, the deadbolt clicked. The door swung inward. Standing in the entryway, holding a half-eaten green apple, was Kylie. Her heavy eyelash extensions fluttered in confusion. But that wasn't what made my blood instantly boil. She was wearing my silk robe, the custom monogrammed, ivory silk robe I had worn on my 30th birthday. My initials, JD, were literally embroidered in gold thread over her left breast. Her jaw dropped, the apple slipping from her fingers and hitting the hardwood floor with a dull thud. She looked at the police, then she looked at me. "Who? What is this?" she stammered, hard, her voice high-pitched and trembling. I didn't look at her. I looked past her shoulder, straight into the sprawling, floor-to-ceiling glass living room. Sitting on a $10,000 modular velvet couch, a couch I had helped Liam pick out from a catalog 6 months ago, was Liam. He was wearing silk lounge pants. He had a glass of expensive red wine casually balanced on his knee, and wrapped tightly around his left wrist, glinting under the recessed track lighting, was the J+L, version 1.0 silver watch. Liam's head snapped toward the door. The color drained from his face so rapidly I thought he was going to pass out. He tried to stand up, but his knees seemed to completely give out. He slumped back into the velvet cushions, his mouth opening and closing like a suffocating fish. I stepped past Kylie, completely ignoring the detective's outstretched arm, and walked directly into the center of the living room. I reached into my designer tote bag and pulled out the crumpled, cheap cardboard Depop package. I held it up in the air, the fluorescent lights catching the torn shipping label. "I'm here for my return to sender shipment, Liam," I said. My voice wasn't raised. It was a terrifying, deadpan whisper that cut through the silence of the room like a surgical scalpel. "The algorithm is a bit more accurate than your gaslighting. You're under arrest for grand larceny." I slowly turned my head, locking eyes with the trembling 22-year-old who was practically hyperventilating against the doorframe. "And Kylie?" I smiled, a dark, venomous curl of my lips. "I'd take off the robe. It's evidence now." The explosion of chaos that followed was absolute poetry. Jen, baby, wait, let me explain," Liam screamed, finally finding his voice as the two uniformed officers surged past me. They grabbed him by the shoulders, forcefully hauling him to his feet. The wine glass shattered across the imported rug, a dark red stain spreading across the white fibers like a blossoming wound. "Get your hands off me. I live here. You can't do this," Liam violently thrashed, his composure completely disintegrating. The detective grabbed Liam's left wrist, the silver watch catching the light, and forcefully wrenched it behind his back. The heavy, metallic click of the steel handcuffs locking into place was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard in my entire life. "You have the right to remain silent," the detective barked, shoving Liam forward. Kylie was sobbing hysterically, clutching the lapels of my silk robe as a female officer ordered her to step into the bedroom and change into her own clothes. "He told me he bought them. He told me he was an investor in vintage fashion," she wailed, her mascara running in thick, ugly black streaks down her cheeks. I stood in the center of the room, entirely untouched by the hysteria, watching my reality realign perfectly into place. But I wasn't done. While the police were busy processing the scene, bagging my stolen Cartier bracelet that they found casually resting on Kylie's nightstand, I walked over to the kitchen counter. Sitting next to a bowl of fruit was the MacBook Pro I had bought for Liam's birthday. The machine he used to run his entire life. His banking, his crypto wallets, his emails, his contacts. I pulled out my phone. I opened the Find My application. Because I was the one who purchased the hardware, my Apple ID was still tethered to the administrator permissions. I looked at Liam. He was being frog-marched toward the front door, his face red and slick with sweat. He locked eyes with me, a look of pure, unadulterated terror on his face. I tapped the screen. Select device, Liam's MacBook Pro. Action, erase this device. Confirm remote wipe? I held his gaze. I didn't blink. I pressed confirm. A loud, piercing chime echoed from the laptop on the counter. The screen instantly went black, replaced by a stark white Apple logo and a progress bar. Every single piece of data, every password, every photo, every file he had ever created was being systematically incinerated into digital ash. If he wanted a secondary market lifestyle, he was going to start with a totally blank drive. "What did you just do?" he hissed, trying to lunge back toward me, but the officers held him tight. "Jen, please. My whole company is on that drive." "Should have taken your memory supplements, Liam," I whispered. "You forgot to back up your data." The fallout over the next 48 hours was brutally efficient. I didn't just let the criminal justice system do the heavy lifting. I went after the infrastructure. I compiled the police report, the arrest records, and the serial number verifications into a massive PDF. I submitted a formal, high-priority fraud and stolen property report directly to the Trust and Safety Division at Depop. They didn't just refund my $400 for the slip. They permanently banned Kylie's _closet_New York. The ban triggered an automatic freeze on her connected payout accounts. The $8,000 $1,000 in sales she had made from fencing my stolen wardrobe was entirely locked in digital purgatory, pending a full federal investigation. Liam and Kylie were both formally charged with possession of stolen property and grand larceny. Liam's tech startup fired him the moment the arrest became public, citing a morality clause in his contract. Kylie's influencer career died overnight when the hashtag wardrobe forensics hashtag went viral, exposing her entire feed as a catalog of stolen goods. I spent that entire weekend alone in my apartment. I didn't cry. I didn't mourn the relationship. I spent 12 hours rewiring the entryway to my walk-in closet. I ripped out the standard door handle and installed a military-grade biometric lock. It now requires a 12-digit encryption key, a randomized token generator, and a localized retina scan just to access my shoes. On Monday morning, as I was sipping a fresh espresso from my deep-cleaned La Marzocco machine, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the county lockup system. Liam had been granted access to a temporary messaging service while he awaited his bail hearing. "Jen, please. I have nothing. My accounts are frozen. The laptop is wiped. I'm so sorry. I was out of my mind. Please help me." I set my coffee mug down on the Calicotta marble. I picked up my phone, my fingers flying across the glass screen with the speed and precision of a woman who had completely rewritten her own source code. "Memory supplements aren't for me, Liam," I texted back, watching the little green bubble confirm delivery to the jail's network. "They're for you. So you don't ever forget that I built the systems you tried to exploit." I blocked the number, deleted the thread, and turned around to face my meticulously organized, totally secure database of a life. Am I the monster here for completely annihilating his entire digital and financial existence, or did he get exactly what he deserved for trying to gaslight a software architect?
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.